SNCC became the most active organization in the deeply oppressed Mississippi Delta. It was more open to women than the other prominent civil rights organizations, including the SCLC, where Baker witnessed extensive misogynistic teachings and the suppression of women activists. But widespread sexism and appeals to male supremacy pervaded its membership. After the conference at Shaw, Baker resigned from the SCLC and began a long and close relationship with SNCC. Along with Howard Zinn, she was one of SNCC's highly revered adult advisors, known as the godmother of SNCC. In 1961, Baker persuaded the SNCC to form two wings. One wing for direct action and the second wing for voter registration. With Baker's help, SNCC, along with the Congress of Racial Equality, CORE, coordinated the region-wide Freedom Rides of 1961. They also expanded their grassroots movement among black sharecroppers, tenant farmers, and others throughout the South. Ella Baker insisted that strong people don't need strong leaders, and criticized the notion of a single charismatic leader of movements for social change. In keeping the idea of participatory democracy, Baker wanted each person to get involved. She also argued that people under the heel, the most oppressed members of any community, had to be the ones to decide what action they were going to take to get out from under their oppression. She was a teacher and mentor to the young people of SNCC, influencing such important future leaders as Julian Bond, Diane Nash, Stokely Carmichael, Curtis Muhammad, Bob Moses, and Bernice Johnson Reagan. Through SNCC, Baker's ideas of group-centered leadership and the need for radical democratic social change spread throughout the student movements of the 1960s. For instance, the Students for a Democratic Society, the major anti-war group of the day, promoted participatory democracy. These ideas also influenced a wide range of radical and progressive groups that would form in the 1960s and 1970s. In 1964, Baker helped organize the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, MFDP, as an alternative to the all-white Mississippi Democratic Party. She worked as the coordinator of the Washington office of the MFDP and accompanied a delegation of the MFDP to the 1964 National Democratic Party Convention in Atlantic City, New Jersey. The group wanted to challenge the National Party to affirm the rights of African Americans to participate in party elections in the South, where they were still largely disenfranchised. When MFDP delegates challenged the pro-segregationist, all-white official delegation, a major conflict ensued. The MFDP delegation was not seated, but their influence on the Democratic Party later helped to elect many black leaders in Mississippi. They forced a rule change to allow women and minorities to sit as delegates at the Democratic National Convention. The 1964 schism with the National Democratic Party led SNCC toward the Black Power position. Baker was less involved with SNCC during this period, but her withdrawal was due more to her declining health than to ideological differences. According to her biographer Barbara Ransby, Baker believed that Black Power was a relief from the stale and unmoving demands and language of the more mainstream civil rights groups at the time. She also accepted the turn towards armed self-defense that SNCC made in the course of its development. Her friend and biographer Joanne Grant wrote that Baker, who always said that she would never be able to turn the other cheek, turned a blind eye to the prevalence of weapons. While she herself would rely on her fists, she had no qualms about target practice. From 1962 to 1967, Baker worked as the staff of the Southern Conference Education Fund, SCEF. Its goal was to help black and white people work together for social justice. The interracial desegregation and human rights group was based in the South. SCEF raised funds for black activists, lobbied for implementation of President John F. Kennedy's civil rights proposals, and tried to educate Southern whites about the evils of racism. Federal civil rights legislation was passed by Congress and signed by President Lyndon B. Johnson in 1964 and 1965, but implementation took years.